Hello everybody, welcome to our next session. I'm delighted to present you Dennis Ploetner. He's a PHP web developer and he's curious about new IT trends, and in his free time he spends updating WordPress plugins and helping the community. His native language is German, but he's living in Italy, so he speaks Italian as well. And in Italy, he is part of the Milan WordPress community, where he's also co-organizer of this event. Please give me your big round of applause for him.
So that explains a bit the background why I'm interested in multilingual WordPress. Because when I came to Italy and learned the language, then I wanted to start blogging in Italian. It was not so easy at the beginning, but at the end, yeah, it turned out well. So, I believe it's astounding that we still talk about multilingual WordPress. That is a thing that we have to talk about. Because so many years passed by, and yeah, still we are almost there, but not really. So I prepared, hopefully the thing works here, not apparently. So I prepared some points to guide you through how I think about multilingual WordPress. Maybe first we talk about what these acronyms or numeronyms are, and how they fit in the whole picture. We talk about API functions, then translation files and the loading of the text domain and all that, user settings, and at the end a bit about the plugin territory. I will also not talk so much about plugins, because that I will explain it later, but it's more really developer perspective here, what's interesting for me. And yeah, so let's dive into what I said. Myself at the beginning, when I saw to make WordPress.org all these numeronyms, early on I didn't understand really well what it would mean and why. There's also a story behind that. It goes back in the 70s. I will not bother with that part. But at the end, these are just convenient and easy ways to present a concept like internationalization, localization, and so on. And what we are interested in at the end, we are just two things like internationalization and localization. So, and often here there's like, for many people not really a border, like what's internationalization, what's localization. I would say internationalization, that's the developer zone, and localization is then the translator zone, or you can then say it can be done or it has been done, something like that. So we can clearly have these two fields separated. So as I said, I also want to talk, or first I want to talk about API functions. And I have really created three areas. I don't know if you are of the old Western movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So it is really like that. If you look in the core files, you can see something like that. And I start with the good, and they are. Oh, it's not here. Okay. No. I have also prepared something for you. If you want to see the code that I prepared, and you can actually go to a GitHub repository, and you will find a plugin which is actually implementing all that what I'm talking about, and where my code is coming from. Obviously, for slides, I simplified it a bit so that you can concentrate on the parts you should care and I care. So, back to the good one. So we have clearly at least 3 functionalities. They are important in day-by-day work. Whenever you care about your multilingual themes or plugins. You have the underscore function, it's the classic one, like giving back a translation in a var. You have then the context. You could use another string or the same string, which would have another translation that's different with a given context. And then the underscore n function, where you can give it a number, and if it's a singular, you get one string back and another string. So these are simple functions, and I would say these are the good ones that you have to use. Let's have a look why I say the good ones and the bad ones. These two here. If you use a PHP code sniffer, you cannot go away with not having an error if you not say something like PHP code sniffer ignore. And that clearly gives you the idea there is a problem here. It's at least code smell. Probably a security problem. Yeah. Because what can happen here, if you use the function underscore a, you clearly print out immediately a string, a translation of a string. That could be also a JavaScript alert XSS or something like that. And then you have a problem. There's no filtering here, and that function is just going through and printing out. The same is obviously also with the underscore ax function, and they, for how I see that, I would just replicate them in the core if it's possible. Probably I will do a ticket for that. So I guess it's not so often used. I don't know if you ever used underscore a? Nobody? Oh, I see 2, 3 people. Okay, don't use it. So these are, they seem ugly. They are not. They are the safest. And
I opened this barcode that you gave.
Yeah.
I see beautiful code on the screen. Is it also in the GitHub project? Or?
In the you will find a folder docs presentations.
Okay.
Because then the code that you see in the class, or so I just run the test so that at least I'm quite sure that the code is working. And so here you have all these functions that we saw before, like even underscore a as an escaped version. That's what you can use safely and without having any problems and without writing in the PHP code sniffer comments that you want to ignore a security problem. So. And there's something like, I said, that there's the developer zone, the translator's zone, and as a developer you obviously you have your strings and you think about your code, but sometimes you also think about the people later on in the chain translating your strings, and sometimes they have just a hard time to understand what you were saying, and if you don't give a hint of how they should translate your things, then they probably cannot do it so much. Translator strings, they are easy to implement, like you make just comments, say translators, and then you can explain what your code is actually, or what your string is actually meant for. And here, in that case, you see I can say, okay, the var in that string is like the star value, it's an integer, and you can even go further and say, if you have more than one placeholder string, you just have numbers in there, then you can say that the translator actually can also just switch numbers that might be needed in some languages, and so there's more freedom for translators even, and more information, more freedom, better translations again. So, because I said that you can give translations, that is probably not so clear, but in the corner on the right button, you can see that the translator actually is getting then the hint that's provided here. Today, often they use WordPress or different tools where the comment might be more present than in that case. But it's there and it's helpful, I believe. So let's use it. That's the message here. So translations or internationalization for PHP, that is not so new. That's pretty old. And JavaScript was always like a part where developers tend to develop their own stuff. But at the end, we can actually have the same tools here, like importing the libraries for internationalization in our applications. And there's more, there's not just the underscore function, there's even a sprintf function and all that. It can be very useful. And at the end, you have the same workflow also for your JavaScript programming. And I find that interesting that I still see some developers tend to use other tools instead of the things that come with WordPress core. So, as I said, there's more to explore. You can look into the core code for PHP. There's maybe a bit unlucky the name L10N PHP, because as I said earlier, we do internationalization localization. But anyways, there you can find a lot of functionality, and the same for the NPM package for JavaScript. There's clearly a lot of information there. So, when we did our job, we have now applications, they have these possibilities for internationalization and this possibility that somebody could translate. You have to create the files for giving them somebody to work on. Like here the classic ones, POT, which is something like a template file. PO, that is the get text file that you can translate actually, and MO is the assembled one. There are two other formats, .json, that's for JavaScript obviously, and then these new ones, .l10n PHP files. They are quite interesting because if you have these PHP files, they are preferred loaded, and you have even faster translations, which would be interesting if you are trying to gain more performance even on that part. And actually, what I think about these PHP files is like they not only give better performance because you can think about like, okay, they're smaller, they're text, they fit better in all that below, but you can actually also get an object cache with them and having that stored in object cache. Instead of having always loaded these MO files, they're sometimes quite big, so you can actually gain a lot from them. So that's what they are. How can you create these files? Yeah. If you develop for WordPress, you probably know also the. Oh, that was a trick. So easy. And you use probably also WordPress command line, and there's actually a package that you don't have to install. It's also already included. And you can create all these files easily. There's no need to explain anymore how you should configure your pro add and all that, because you can just run these commands, you get all these files, and in that companion plugin on GitHub you can actually see how I did that for that plugin in Composer, so you can create your convenience ways for creating these files. So, okay, you have your files. So we load text domains, UB, you still have to load them. Actually, it is still a way to be compatible with all the versions. And clearly, it might not hurt to use functionality like that. Probably in the future it will become clearly obsolete, but for now it's a safe way to load your translations, even for JavaScript. You register your script, maybe your blocks, and then later on set the script translation. That is probably right now I think the right way to do that, to load your translations, at least for JavaScript. For PHP, if you have a plugin that is on the repository, and you declare something like a compatibility for WordPress 5 or for 9, I believe, and for 6, then you can clearly just leave that, and automatically WordPress will load your translation files. If you have projects starting from 6.8, you could just do what you see here in your plugin file. Just declare what your text domain is and where your language files are, and then that will be loaded automatically, so there's no need to load translations anymore. But anyways, if you still need the compatibility to all the projects, then probably it's better to just load them. Okay, that is with localization, but we should consider that the user can set their things in the dashboard. They can set, for example, the date and the time format, and obviously every user setting that would expect that the output of the whole website still would consider the format that they gave us. And so I believe that's an easy thing to do. So just let's have it, like using the core functions that WordPress brings, together with like easy things like get option and asking for the date format, for example, and giving it out like in the right way. Even if you have your own timestamps that we create, you can use the same functionality. There's enough on board for having at least respected what the user wanted from us and set in the dashboard. Same is for number format functions we have in WordPress, and also here you can decide how that would print out, even enforcing maybe also decimals or something like that. So these are functions I consider quite important, just to give the user the right idea. If they set something, then not wonder about like why is the program acting differently than I saw. Okay, now we are here at the plugin territory, because at the end, if we have WordPress in the various languages we want, then we probably have our translations, and we want somehow create relations between our translations. And that is still plugin territory. And there are different solutions, and we can just dive into that part and see what we have to talk about here. The first one is probably the most prominent one. It's like the single site approach, where you have in one website, you have your setup for a plugin that is managing that. That means as a pro, you have not to worry about all technical things when they come with other solutions. And then you have your shared team plugin setup, and everything theoretically could work. On the contrary, you have probably a vendor login, because starting some website with a plugin like that, just deactivating it is not possible anymore. Even between different solutions, you can not easily switch. There might be a performance problem. And also often we see that themes and plugins, they become complex because of that relationship with the translations. So another approach is the multi-site approach. That's pretty close to core behavior. You have a full content separation, and also because of the nature of multi-site, it scales quite well for larger projects. It is still a bit complex for a user to set it up and to maintain it. There are also many say that it seems less editor-friendly, and sometimes you need also custom solutions if you want to share your assets in another way, like not central or in different websites. And then we have the software as a service solutions. So probably these are like you get easily set up, probably also automatic translations, and the site would not change very much. On the other side, your translation is probably going to other service you don't know. You may have no control over that. And that's what I say would be a privacy concern. Also, obviously here, these plugins, they host, they always come with a host. And also you cannot really intervene if you want to customize your translated content. So if you go down into that bigger picture, and then we have to decide, because sometimes like that, it's your boss coming to you as a developer, and then you have a word on that, and you have to say, yeah, let's go with that solution, and later on maybe you understand, okay, maybe that was a one way, and it's hardly to change. So, but if you see the picture here like so, maybe you can even simplify it a bit and say, okay, if we have a decision tree, if you would create like, what do we want to have here? Like an easier website? Do we need shared resources? Yeah. And the unified management and all that. And to look then at the cons, okay, let's find something maybe that is less blocking for the future. Or we don't care maybe about some things like it's less intuitive. So we want a scalable solution. These are things I believe putting that into account, and then making maybe also something like a simple SWOT analysis, and thinking about like, where do I want to go, which direction, everything would go okay, and even with some solution might be okay for one project and another solution for another project, yes, why not? But making an informed decision, that's probably the point here. So, if we want to wrap it up here, like multilingual WordPress development. We start early on. We always use these internationalization commands and think about the architecture, having it in mind from the beginning. Translations, that they have something to do with security. Let's not forget that. You can trust your translators. They can do even errors, or there can be an attack in the supply chain or whatever. Think about it. You can help your translators, giving context, helping them to make good translations. And testing is everything. You have to test always the whole way, and often. Okay, here we are, 25 minutes. Now we can come to questions.
Thank you, Dennis, for this presentation. Now we can open the question part. Who has a question? Okay, I'm coming to you. Do you mind if you...
Thank you for the talk. It was really well, and also for the code. Very good. I come from Multilingual with optimization web, and I saw this thing about the code escaping and not trusting the translators. And I thought, like, maybe this could be a problem in our supply chain. But on the other hand, we often hand over HTML formatting to the translators, meaning that the translation strings can contain HTML code like bold, strong hyperlinks. And that's a piece to tackle. Should I completely replace them with a language I invent myself? Should I just hand over the HTML to the translators? But then the escaping gets a bit tricky. How do you handle that question?
Okay, you will see also not example plugin. There is a function like taking the content with __ and printing it out with a secure function that would escape at the end, accepting a set of HTML tags that you can define, or you can use the one that is defined in that specific function, like WP, KSES, _post. Then you have a set that is predefined for posts, or you could even create your own set for a more generic function for that. For the first part, what you said, let's think about that a translator probably doesn't know HTML. So you have to create your strings in that way. Like for the translator, it's just text. If you have a link that has an anchor tag, it might be the right way today, not tomorrow, or for a device that we still don't know, or make it future-proof. Just translate text without markup. Find a way to concatenate your output and then make it with a secure output function.
I would actually add a little bit to your answer. In my case, we use sprintf and have marker 1 for the opening of the anchor tag and marker 2 for the closing. And this also allows, if you just concatenate, you will always have the issue that in German it might be the sentence in front of whatever variable you have, and in French it might be behind. So using the some sprintf is probably the best approach, and that's what I'm doing in our code.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, you could actually use these numbers, so you can even if you want to change your format later on, or if you have this situation like switching for first name, surname, something like that could be in other language, could be a thing, so you can switch that in your translation and you are good to go. So you can have more than 1, 2, 3 parameters, like having markup there, and then your placeholders sparse.
So to my question or to my comment, While I completely agree with you that you should always escape, there is actually a use case where _e is not necessarily bad. If you write custom code and you are in 100% control of the translations, you don't have a security issue. Though in my company I will still use escaped internationalization functions, just because it is the common practice and you should not have different practice between home code and public code.
Okay, you say you would trust in your company because you would know who would be the person in the chain working on our. Yeah, but attacks come also from inside of the company, so you could never know if a leaving ex-company, if they would like doing a last greeting, like
So thank you for the talk. And I saw you mentioned to be nice to translators to use translator comments. How do you think about the _x function? Why do you prefer the comments instead of the _x where you put the context in the second column?
Yeah, because if you give context and you give also programmatically the possibility to have a different translation here. I'm not sure if you can always explain well what you mean with your string, just giving the context. It could be also that you just say, my context is a lead form, and in a landing page it has a different meaning maybe. And, that would be for me the use case, while I think when it comes to placeholders and all that, even PHP code sniffer would expect that you give the translator's context. And then you explain. So if you use PHP code sniffer like I use in my example here, you cannot get away from having your translator strings.
So probably the addition is then you have, when you put in the context, then you can have, when you have the same word, in some language it's one word, but in some language they're different. I think that the context then is relevant if you want to split this. Whatever, in English
but not just the language. Yes, it also could be your use case. You could have as a lead form and a part of the content where you would have different meanings maybe.
More hands?
Okay.
If there is nothing, I would add one thing that I learned a while ago when doing or attending some talk about internationalization. There are languages besides our good European or our European languages that have different rules about singular and plural. In most of the European languages, there is just one singular, it's one, and everything else plural. And in Slavic languages, it's in most cases the 1, 11, etc. So it is also a good practice to keep that in mind when doing internationalization with plural functions, that you don't hard code a written one inside that.
Absolutely. Also, that brings us probably also to a thing we should probably also often talk about. If you do a community plugin, then you prepare your plugin for every possible use case. If you make custom plugins, you have your client has expectations, and then you have sometimes also to ask just questions like, do you need really the translation here for that specific language? Maybe it's just vanity and they don't really need it because they're not aware of it. They also have to do support and all that for in a language they don't speak, maybe internally. Having a translation done, that makes maybe no sense. So if you know the language that you are giving the the right care. So then you probably know what these edge cases that are coming up with just like that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Let's give him a